And I can say young man because I'm old, even though I got him by a few years. We go back to high school, playing in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, basketball tournament. Didn't get a chance to play against him in college, but played with him on our Pan Am team in 1991 that went down to Cuba, won a bronze, and then being able to follow his career throughout the NBA and his post-career on TV with, of course, Turner and CBS. So I got to welcome in the Hall of Famer, college and NBA. My guy, Mr. Grant Hill. How you doing, Grant?
I'm good, man. You conjured up some great memories of watching you at Macomber Whitney High School down in Myrtle Beach, where you absolutely dominated everybody in your way.
No, man, that was some good time. Just think about this, where we've been. That was 88, 89, bro. I mean, that at that time, that was before AAU was like really big, but playing in those holiday tournaments, and Kenny Anderson, number one player in the country at that time, and our senior class was there. Is there something when you look back at that time in high school, when you were, because you were a sophomore at the time, coming through, that you could imagine all that you have gone through to get to this point in your life?
You know, that's a great question, Jim. And you know, I think for both of us, I mean, if we both go back to Myrtle Beach, you know, holiday of 88, and I don't know if I could have dreamed big enough to you know, in terms of like what I wanted out of basketball versus what I was able to do and what you're able to do. I mean, it's been 35 years plus, and we've done some incredible things, and we're still doing it. We're still working in media. We're still around the game. I don't think I ever thought that big. You know, I just, at that time, it was, I loved the game. I wanted to beat you guys, which didn't happen, but you know, wanted to see if I could go play in college and see if I could test myself against some of these great programs in college at that time. And I have far exceeded my expectations if I go back to 1988. I think we both have far exceeded our expectations. And how lucky are we that we were able to play for a long time? We're able to be around the game. We get to cover college basketball. We get to cover the NBA. I mean, you're doing the Rich Eisen Show. You know, you're doing something that's pretty spectacular as well. So it's just, to me, I'm just grateful, and I never imagined that this would happen. And I'm grateful that we're still able to be around the game in various ways.
Well, Grant, what does this say about the patience part? Because back then it was a process you kind of had to go through in order to reach the ultimate goal if you were blessed to get there. It was your high school, pick your college, your 2, 3, 4 years in college, and then if that works out, patient enough to get through, then play in the NBA. Whereas in today's world, it's like, I want it right now. And you kind of lose a little bit of that. I don't know what the word I'm trying to explain is, but you lose something in there because you're trying to rush the process. But it says a lot about back then what we had to wait for and work for and how to get to it. And once we got it, did we appreciate it a lot more?
I think we did. I really do. And I think because of that, because of, you know, the AAU culture was a little bit different. You know, even the person of influence and when we were in high school was our high school coach. And oftentimes a high school coach is an educator. They've gone to college, so they care about the development of young people. You know, as we went into college, I think you were in school for 2 years, 3 years.
3 years, yep.
3 years. I was there 4 years. I think when we came into the NBA, you had a greater foundation. You had the experience of being coached hard. You were a great player. I knew about Jim Jackson before I knew Jim Jackson. I read about you. You and Kenny Anderson were the cream of the crop in your class. And but you know, it was a different time. You know, you had to had to grind. You know, you weren't given anything. You weren't coddled. You had people still challenging you, coaching you, holding you accountable, pushing you to be the very best. And I don't know if young players today get that. I don't know if they're getting that even in the high school level. The money is so extreme, the potential windfall, of success. So people now are looked at as a meal ticket, and I don't think that was necessarily the case as much back in the day. And so, look, the talent is great. The skill set for a lot of these players is great as well. But those hard moments, those tough times, those moments where you're pushed, those are the things now when I look back, I'm appreciative of and I value. And those are the moments of growth and opportunity. And so I think we're missing out on some of those steps. The talent's great, but I don't know what that is either. I don't know what word to use to describe it. But I don't see that these kids today are getting that from their experience prior to making the NBA.
Well, Grant, you're down in Dallas covering the NBA Finals with NBA TV, and we're talking about level of maturity. And that brings up the point about Luka. And Luka spoke about this in his press conference, only 25 years old. And we gave Luka a lot of credit for being a lot more mature entering into the NBA at a young age, but there's still growth to be made, in particular his body language, his demeanor, how he handles officials. For you being on the ground and following Luka, what's the next level of maturity for him as it relates to not only his game, but how he approaches officials, defensively gets better, and continues to grow as a player?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jim. And, you've called games in Dallas, so you're very aware and seeing things up close in person there courtside. The talent of Luka Doncic is off the charts, and how he plays, how he thinks the game, how he plays at a certain pace, his scoring, his pass, like all of that, his instincts are absolutely incredible. I think two things. I think one, the maturity in the gamesmanship that goes into interacting with officials. You have to pick and choose your spots. If you're constantly getting on them and getting distracted and getting caught up in that game within the game, then you become a problem. And we've seen that for him in the regular season, but we've also seen it throughout the playoffs and even in this series. So I think if he can grow up from that standpoint, from a leader standpoint, not being caught up or consumed in that and just playing the game, I think that would help him and it'd help his teammates. And I think he's got to get in better shape. I really do. I don't think he's committed and devoted himself to being in tip-top shape to where he can have the responsibility of the ball in his hands every possession, but then also be the target defensively. Teams are going to go at him. They should go at him. He's not the strongest player on the defensive end. And to have the endurance to handle the responsibility on defense and on offense, that's not there right now. Boston is exposing that. They're taking advantage of that. But if Luka can get in better shape, really commit to being conditioned in the best version of himself and not be caught up with the officiating, I think there's another level that he can get to. And that next level can help Dallas win a championship. I really do believe that.
Are we not giving maybe the Celtics the credit they deserve defensively? I mean, this is not – Minnesota was the best defensive team on paper. They had a rim protected. This Boston team is built around defensive versatility. How much of that is a factor? Because each series, each opponent is different, and they're causing different issues, not just for Luka, but for Kyrie.
Well, games and series are all about matchups. And yes, Minnesota was an elite defensive team, but a better matchup for Dallas, obviously. I think the defensive versatility that you alluded to, where you have multiple guys who can guard multiple positions. Drew Holiday is not your traditional point guard on the defensive end. You can put him on anybody, and he's going to fight. He's going to make life difficult for you. Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, they're capable. They have length and size, and they've learned how to become good defensive players. Obviously, Porzingis, he's been hurt the last few games. But Al Horford, even at his advanced age, he's switched out on Luka and switched out on Kyrie Irving and has held his own and made those guys work for tough shots. So the defensive versatility, and the defensive intelligence of this Boston team, I think hasn't been truly appreciated or respected. And quite honestly, I think this team really has been underrated. I mean, they've been number one all season, head and shoulders above everyone else. They've taken care of business the whole way. They've dominated this postseason. Like, really, I can't think of any other team on a championship run that has dominated like this Celtics team. And now they're on the verge of sweeping this Mavericks team. And it's like, wow, like, how did that happen? This team is pretty incredible. And I don't think gets the credit or appreciation overall for what they've done. And let me tell you, Jim, if they can win tonight or win this series with the age of this roster, they have a lot of runway in front of them to really potentially put together multiple championships here in Boston with this group.
Well, I tell you, we always talk about youth and Jaylen Brown and, Jason Tatum and being able to have that. Porzingis is still relatively young with regards to where he's at. But how about who's heading this thing up with Joe Mazzulla? Last year, it was, is it too much? Is he over his head? He doesn't have the experience. But he got thrown in a situation that's tough for even an experienced coach to be able to handle it. But then the narrative is, well, you have all this talent, so you should win. But it takes a little bit more game planning-wise, the attention to detail. And Grant, it's just as difficult to coach talent as it is when you don't have talent. So the job that Joe Mazzulla has done this year is also, if I'm correct, been kind of underrated.
Oh, no question. No question. And you said it best last year. I think he was transitioned into the head coaching role like right before the start of the season. And so didn't really have the time to prepare for what that is and the responsibility that goes into that. But and maybe last year was criticized and did some things and was sort of learning the position on the fly. But I do think last season prepared him. And he is, really just from day one has this group prepared. He's created a great culture. There's no issues, no problems. They play together. They play the right way. I think he has, found that right balance between empowering guys, but then also holding them accountable, which is not always easy to do in today's game with today's generation. And he's made a lot of the right moves. And you're right, it's hard to coach talent. There's expectations in Boston. When he inherited this team, they just had come off their first finals visit as a core group. They had been to the Eastern Conference Finals a number of times. It was not an easy opportunity, if you will, for a first-time coach. But he has improved. He's settled in. I think he's now very, very comfortable. And once again, I think underappreciated, undervalued for the job that he's done with this group. They face some adversity. They've gone through some stuff this year, obviously with the Porzingis situation. And these guys were ready. These guys were prepared, and these guys came out and took care of business there in Game 3.
Good stuff. And I want to transition just a little bit since I'm in L.A., the Lakers situation, and a family that you're very familiar with, which is the Hurley family. Dan Hurley got offered or got brought into L.A. to be offered to be in a position to take over as the head coach. How much do you stay in touch with the family? And you know this more than anything, better than anybody because of the relationship with the family. Were you surprised that Dan didn't take the job and went back to UConn, or is this something you thought may happen?
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, the Hurley family, it's incredible, that legacy from their father, Bob Hurley Sr., iconic high school coach, maybe one of the greatest, if not the greatest high school coach of all time. Obviously, Bobby, what he did as a player in college and now coaching. But Dan, Dan's probably the one guy that I don't know the best. I mean, I know Bobby, I know Mr. and Mrs. Hurley. I even know Bobby's sister, Melissa, because she was always around. She was little when we were having our run back in the early 90s, but I didn't know Danny that well. I've gotten to know him a little bit, obviously during the last couple of years during their tournament run. I was actually surprised that he was offered the job. And just because it felt like it came out of nowhere, like you didn't hear about it. It was kind of under the radar. And, they made an offer. There was a flirtation. There was certainly some interest. But I'm actually glad he stayed in college. I think Dan Hurley would have had to change his approach, his demeanor, his style, if he was going to go into the NBA and have success. Watching him with his team, watching him coach, watching him in practice at the Final Four, it's comedy in some ways, but he's also like just very tough on his guys in a loving and an endearing way. Like he cares for his guys, he pushes them, he holds them to a standard and he does it in a way that really works in college. Jim, as well as anyone, the college game is much different than the NBA game. 82 games, you're dealing with big personalities, guys making hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a give and a take, and I don't know if he would have been able to be who he is in the NBA game. He would have had to adjust. And quite frankly, look, I like what he's doing at UConn. I like what he's building. I think he has a chance to have even more success. He's built a culture, a championship culture. But look, when the Lakers come calling and you have a chance at an iconic franchise to coach a LeBron James, you have to entertain that. Years ago, Coach K went through that. The Lakers came calling. They offered him a big contract. He had a chance to coach a younger Kobe Bryant then. And I think he flirted with it, but ultimately realized that Duke was right for him. And Dan has done the same thing, realizing UConn is the right place for him as well.
And I'd be remiss, too, if I didn't talk to you a little bit about Caitlin Clark, what's going on since you're the managing director of USA men's basketball. But mine is more so kind of the process in which it works, because it's almost like people say, well, you just throw her on the team and she'll be fine, and you need the marketing and you need this. But the women who have participated, whether that's the World Games or the previous Olympics, have gone through the process of making the team, of continuity, and just wanted to kind of get your take on it a little bit since you're involved with the men's side of USA basketball.
Yeah, no, very fair question. And, the men's team is different than the women's team. And the process of picking the Olympic roster is very, very different. Prior to 2006, when my predecessor, Jerry Colangelo, took over as the men's national team managing director, the team was selected by a committee. And that changed, and Jerry became the authority, the final say on picking and selecting the team. Now I've assumed that role. In our current roster, I chose, obviously solicited input from others, but I was the one that had the final say on that. The women's process is much like it was pre-2006 for the men. There's a committee, and they've been given sort of, what they're looking for in terms of players, the purview, if you will, what their responsibility is as a committee. And throughout the last couple of years, they have, sort of mini camps that are part of the process or protocol, if you will. And so I know there was a lot of pressure. I know, obviously, Caitlin Clark, what she has done for the game, the college game, now the WNBA game, and I think women's basketball and men's basketball. I think she has the ability to inspire not just young girls, but young boys as well. She's that dominant, that talented, and has that kind of game that resonates. Controversial indeed, I understand, and people have opinions, but I think the women who are on that committee are women who have given to the game, continue to give to the game, have been great ambassadors, have been in the WNBA. And I think understand the value and the impact that Caitlin Clark can and will have for women's basketball. But ultimately their process was their process. And, maybe as a result of this, they'll take a look at their process. Who knows what happens? But, I do feel that people are passionate either way about the ultimate decision. And I think that's good. I think passion is good. People care one way or the other. And I think that passion is what sells, and that's what's marketable. So, that's what I know. I'm not as well versed on the process. You might know the process better than I do, but we have to respect it. And processes can change. They can be tweaked, and maybe they'll take a hard look at their process moving forward.
Good stuff, Grant. And before I let you go, listen, for the younger generation that don't understand how great you were, co-rookie of the year with a former teammate of mine in '95, which was Jason Kidd, pre-injuries, and I understand that, as well as anybody. And I always ask this too, where we talk about the athletes, the players, what could have been. And you always say, well, we don't regrets, we don't look back at it. Something didn't happen, but it did. But is there, from a career perspective, before I let you go, if you could go back and change time, and I'm not going to say a regret, if you could change something career-wise for you, what would it be?
It's a great question, and I appreciate, first of all, the compliment, the kind words. We played in a different era, and there's a distinction between being hurt and being injured when we played. Regardless, you were expected to play whether you were hurt or injured. That has changed now. Now we protect our investment. We, workload and rest. Rest management. What's the term?
Load management.
Load management is a term that was non-existent back in the 90s. And I don't mind that. Like, I don't mind that at all. I'm one of the old guys that doesn't mind that, because I would have benefited if I had a team and an organization looking out for my best interest long term. So to answer your question, I think the one thing was I would have listened to my body. And, Otis Thorpe, who I was a veteran when I played in Detroit, won a championship with the Houston Rockets, a great teammate, a great leader. He used to tell me when I was young, your body talks to you. You just have to learn how to listen to it. And I didn't listen. I didn't trust my instincts. I didn't trust what my body was telling me. I was listening to the so-called experts, and it really derailed what had a chance to be a real special career and a real special trajectory from my first 6 years in the NBA. And so I don't have regret. I mean, I appreciate the struggle, as difficult as it was. I also appreciate coming back from the struggle and being able to play at the end of my career a shell of myself, but still being able to play and appreciate, the privilege to play. But if I could go back, yes, I would listen to my body, trust my instincts, trust what my body is telling me. And maybe the injuries and all of that might have been much, much different if I had done so.
Jimmy, I'm glad you brought up how great Grant Hill was, because, we're at a time now where kids nowadays, they're trying to erase Michael Jordan out of the record books, saying he wasn't the greatest of all time. And so when you have someone, and Grant, what's up? How you doing, man? Someone like you, I grew up in that era of you and Jimmy. And to me, you're one of my greatest what ifs. If the ankle had not gotten hurt, we'd be looking at Grant Hill as one of the absolute greatest players of all time. So I'm glad you brought that up, Jimmy.
Wait. I'm not letting you off the hook like that, TJ.
Oh, okay. You're not.
Grant, got something for you. TJ said your greatest accomplishment ever in life was...
Well, I mean, you won national championships, and you were a great basketball player in the NBA, and everything you've done post-basketball. But Grant, let's be honest, the greatest accomplishment was you pulling Miss Tamina. I feel like at a certain age, we knew, and we went, that Grant Hill's the man right there. Right? So respect.
I appreciate that, and let's just say I was an overachiever. And, I overachieved with Tamia for sure.
Yeah, can you sing, Grant? You try sometimes. See you posting stuff and you dancing. Are you a shower singer, or do you sing in the studio with her sometime? Or she say, Grant, get out of my face.
Yeah. Tamia says that I can't even sing in the shower. That's how bad I am. And sometimes when I try to sing, she's like, are you trying to be off key? Like you have to work to be off key. And I'm like, no, man, I can do it with ease. But now with her singing, you really don't even want to sing. You know, it's like why should I even try to sing when, you know, she has a voice like that? You don't even want to do karaoke with her. It's like it's no fun.
Hey, Greg, does it get old? Are you like, man, I don't feel like hearing that today, man. That's just to me. That's, you know, does it?
Yeah, you know what's funny?
Be careful now. Be careful with this.
She's obviously has a great voice, and like anyone, she's, you know, hears a song, she's always singing it, humming it. We could be in the kitchen, we could be in the car, you know, we could be just, you know, she could be in her closet and she's singing, and she's always singing. And sometimes you're like, hey, can I just think for a sec, like, but the most important thing, like man, like she can, like, I'm like, wow, like she's singing this song on the radio, and she sounds better than the actual singer. And so sometimes most of the time I do like wow, like she's got an incredible voice. And how lucky is she that she was given that voice? Like that voice is an instrument, and she's protected it, and she can still get out there and blow. And but yeah, I don't like doing karaoke with her. I don't like singing in her presence at all.
No, man. Sense. Thank you. Hey, Grant, I really appreciate it. Enjoy your time down there in Dallas. Hopefully we can get another game, because as basketball enthusiasts, we want to see more basketball, not less. And hopefully the Mavs can put something together. It's going to be a tough one to overcome the South Boston team. But enjoy it. Look forward to more coverage, man. And thank you for coming on.
I appreciate having me, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Grant.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.